Hello, everybody. I'm O'Neill Gerald Donald, and I'm here on the Reclaim Your Voice podcast, where we help you to set the stage for your voice being at its full potential. Here on the Reclaim Your Voice podcast, we help you to take your singing from unsure to unforgettable. We give you the tools that you need to stop losing your voice, break your bad singing habits, and find your unique sound. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about microphones. What's great is that there's a companion video that I've put along with this where we're kind of discovering, how a microphone really works. I want you to go and check that out. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the hidden dangers of relying on a microphone for your singing, because a lot of the music that we hear, in fact, all of the music that we hear today is being sung into a microphone. And with creating music, and whether it be on a computer or whether it be in a live setting, say, at a church for praise and worship, we're very much used to using microphones to amplify our sound and to also help us hear ourselves. But what we don't understand is that the use of a microphone can sometimes alienate us from understanding our voice's true build and what our voice is actually capable of doing. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that. So the first point I have about microphones is that when you overly rely on a microphone to help you to sing, you actually don't end up knowing your voice as much as you think you do. In using a microphone a whole bunch of the time, you're hearing your voice in an amplified state. The purpose of a microphone is to make the sound that is going into it bigger so that it can be heard, whether it be on a stage, in a concert or, over a band. You want to be able to amplify the voice so that it's doing that. However, when we're only singing on a microphone, because our voice is already being helped, it takes us away from the ability to know how to actually amplify our sound using our bodies rather than simply using a microphone. And so we're being put in a situation where all of our bad vocal habits, everything that, is not necessarily optimal about our singing is being amplified. And because it's being amplified, we're not able to hear or even feel how our bodies are actually fighting against, what we're actually doing vocally. Now, when I work with students, I help them to understand what it's supposed to feel like in their bodies when they are singing. However, when you're using a microphone, you're removed from that experience because it's like, okay, this is great. We got a sound, people can hear me, but microphones don't discriminate. They're going to amplify good vocal technique, but they're also going to amplify bad vocal technique. And if you're singing in a microphone all the time, hearing yourself out of a recording without actually taking the time to actually take off the microphone and sing without it, you're not understanding how your voice actually works. And so you end up losing touch with the ability for you to actually know your voice. I actually knew this for myself. I recorded my first two EPs on a USB microphone and I couldn't hear myself. It's kind of weird. When I got an audio interface and I was able to start to hear myself for my third EP in my mind, I was recording with the microphone at a particular volume that I felt, helped to accentuate my lower register. But what it did is it actually drew me out of touch with the way that my lower register actually thins out, right? And not necessarily that it thins out like it doesn't have some type of body or a robust nature, but simply when we're getting to the lowest parts of our register, it can tend to get quieter. And we're going to need, microphone help in order for that sound to be amplified. But in hearing that sound up close to my ears, kind of like how it is right now, where with the headphones that I have, I thought that my lower register was more robust. And so I thought my voice was lower than it actually was. It wasn't until I started singing without the microphone and kind of allowing my singing regimen to get out of, the box that I was working in for all of the time that I was recording my EP, that I really started to understand what my voice is actually capable of. And of course, that leads me to my next point. When you're using a microphone, and you're allowing the microphone to amplify you, you can actually be amplifying bad vocal technique, like we said, or a harmful sound. And now when I say a harmful sound, I simply mean a sound that isn't sustainable. Say if you were on a live tour, it's not something that you can recreate over and over and over and over. It's actually a sound that if you were actually singing without a microphone and you were trying to project that particular sound, you actually would do more harm than good. I detailed this much more in the companion video, but let's say you wanted a very breathy tone. If I were actually talking or singing like this, what's happening is there is excess air that is accompanying the tone, and that extra air is actually blowing through the glottis between my vocal folds, and that extra air is drying me out, right? Is drying out your vocal folds. It's not the optimal type of sound creation. Now, can you use a microphone to create it? Absolutely. But if you don't understand that you're amplifying not the best sound to create, you're going to go live and, create that sound. And over a longer period of time, you're going to find yourself not having as much vocal stamina because you're amplifying a sound that is using technique that works against the longevity of your voice. And that's my definition of bad vocal technique, by the way. I'm not talking about different styles, et cetera, so forth. We're simply talking about, is your technique actually helping you to sustain your vocal longevity, or is it shortening your voice's life more than it needs to? That's the thing. You can end up amplifying a harmful sound if you're misusing or if you're relying on a microphone for your singing too much, again, because you don't understand what your voice can do. Or you can actually not let the microphone do its job. And I can really relate to this too. In growing up in a small church, we had microphones, but we didn't necessarily know how to use them. And I would hear a lot of people that were shouting in the microphone at the top of their lungs, and they were not realizing that the microphone was there to actually help them to project over a band. The whatever studio engineer, et cetera, so forth, wouldn't be allowing the mic to have enough gain so that a singer could understand, I don't need to be shouting. And sometimes singers don't even know when they're overusing their voice, when they're actually pushing too hard and not allowing the microphone to do its job. So that's not even necessarily relying on a microphone, but it's when we're in a performance situation and we don't know how to use the microphone, and we're relying, on just the stage and the fact that we have a microphone in front of our face to help us, and the sound engineer can do whatever he will. We don't actually understand what the optimal volume is for our singing. The microphone is going to reveal whether or not you really understand your voice and really understand what a microphone is for. That's why we need to get off the microphone and actually understand what you do without a microphone, how you sing without it, and so that we can really understand what's going on there. And here's the other thing. When you rely on a microphone too much, you can actually start to think that you're more skilled than you think you are. And this kind of ties in with that second point about amplifying technique that works against the longevity of your voice. When you're using a microphone, it can make you think that you're loud when in reality, all you're being is amplified. There's a difference between having a strong projected sound and having a sound that is being amplified, a sound that is being projected for you. If you take the two sounds off of the microphone, you'll be able to hear, one sound is definitely a lot different, right? But because everything is recorded now, everyone thinks that, oh yeah, the microphone would just help me. But in terms of your vocal longevity, in terms of actually being able to continue to sing, your ability to not even just create a loud sound or a soft sound. This isn't about loud or soft. This is about you being able to understand what sound you're putting in the microphone. Because once you understand what you're putting in the microphone, you can actually control the volume of your voice rather than relying on the microphone or relying on the gain or the sound engineer to turn you up and to turn you down. This is about being able to create different types of sounds that are vocally supported, that are supported by your body to actually help your voice to last long. Also, you need to know when you're not getting enough, like we were talking about before as well. You need to know when you need the microphone turned up because you're actually creating sound at your optimal sound. They need to turn you up, because if you're shouting too much, you're not going to be able to make it through your show. You're not going to be able to make it through a longer period of singing. And that also works with my last point. When you heavily rely on a microphone, you think that you are not just more skilled than you think you are, you think you're louder than you actually are. A microphone is a tool, but when you heavily rely on a tool, you can start to actually get out of touch with what you can actually do. It's kind of like ChatGPT. Now, this isn't an AI podcast, but if I may, just for a moment, ChatGPT is supposed to be a tool, but there's a lot of people that are using ChatGPT to write like an essay or to write longer forms of content. Now, is something wrong with that? Not necessarily morally, but it does work against your ability to actually create for yourself if you rely too heavily on the tool. And that's essentially what we're saying. A microphone is supposed to be a tool that's supposed to be amplifying you. And if you don't know how to actually use your voice outside of a microphone, you'll fool yourself into thinking you know your voice when you actually don't. And a lot of you that are listening to the podcast are actually in that situation where you don't know when you're singing too quietly. You don't know when you're singing too loud. You don't even know how to actually sustain your voice and what your optimal sound is so that you can actually continue to sing well, or so that you can know when you need to be turned up or turned down. And so that's why I want you to get on a call with me if you're in that position. I want you to get on a voice breakthrough call at reclaimyourvoice.ca/call. That's reclaimyourvoice.ca/call. And let's build a plan so that you can understand what your voice is supposed to do without a microphone, without needing to hear yourself in the monitor. This is about us building a level of awareness in your voice and you, so that you can use your voice in a way that is sustainable. So I want you to go to reclaimyourvoice.ca/call, book a voice breakthrough call with me, and let's figure out what's not working in your voice so that we can actually build a plan to get you to actually being able to connect with your audience on a sustainable level. And if you are resonating with everything in this podcast, I definitely encourage you to follow this podcast wherever you're listening to it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll be able to help you to continue to reclaim your voice. I'm O'Neil Gerald Donald, and I'll see you guys, and I do this every single time. You guys will hear me in the next podcast or watch me if you're watching on YouTube. All right. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day or night if you're listening. Okay. Bye.